today I'm going to do a little bit of a different kind of video. It's actually something I've been wanting to do for a long time, and it's going to be a 6-month update for basically dailying this 4G63 swapped Mighty Max. So yeah, I finished the truck and started driving it about 6 months ago, and other than a few things that broke and I had to fix, you know, a few kinks I had to iron out, it's been really reliable. So, you know, I highly recommend it, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about like what broke and what I had to fix. A lot of you probably saw it in the videos already, but basically there was an issue with Alternator not charging, and it wasn't even anything broken. It was just me not knowing what I'm doing. So what it was, let me just pop the hood here. Also, one thing is these screws on these hood pins are starting to back out. So like one's missing here, and these ones are all still here, but they're starting to back out real bad. From time to time I'll take a screwdriver and tighten them up, but basically I just need to get rivets and rivet them in. Not a huge deal, but you know, I'm being completely honest in this video of what it's like to daily this thing and how it is 6 months later, and you know, should you do it, being probably the question you're asking yourself. So yeah, the issue with the alternator, nothing, you can hardly see it down there below those pipes. The alternator, nothing was even broken with it at first. It just wasn't charging, and it was because you need to have the instrument cluster from the Eclipse plugged in order for the battery to charge. I know it's weird, and that's just something I found on a forum and decided to try, and sure enough, that was it. So if you're doing a 2G and it does not have a relay for charging the alternator, then you need to plug that cluster in, which is fine because I just have, you know, extra gauges there. I didn't have a glove box in this truck anyways, so you know, that works for me. Other than that, the truck gets a little bit warm sometimes on extended drives on the highway. It doesn't overheat, but it just gets warmer than I would like it to, and I think that part of the reason is the goofy setup that I have for this coolant overflow. It does work for when it gets too hot and bubbles over, but I don't think that the way I have it mounted is effective. So I'm going to be doing something for that soon, make a new coolant reservoir like I did from the Mustang basically, and put it closer, probably over there. So yeah, that's in the works. Other than that, I boost it, spool it around everywhere, no problems with that. It does, you know, like I've said in a video before, if you floor it and do an entire pull, which I don't do on normal daily driving, so I don't really count this, but if you do floor it and do a pull like that, you will hit over like 16 or 18 psi and it'll boost cut. And previously I thought that was probably because I have a bigger turbo on here than what the factory came with, so I thought that that was the problem. But upon further reflection and talking to some people, I think that may actually not be it. I think there's probably a vacuum leak which will cause overboosting, and that's something I actually just learned when I got the Mustang tuned. So the Mustang was doing that, and we found a vacuum leak, and the overboosting quit once we plugged it. So I think there's probably a vacuum leak, and I think I actually know where it is. You really can't see it at all, but there is an EGR thing on the back side of the intake manifold, and this brake booster is perfectly in the way, so I would have to jack up the truck to show it to you. But basically, whenever I was test fitting the engine, putting it in, taking it out, putting it in, take it out, the EGR port got kind of banged up. So I don't think that the EGR, you know, thing itself, it's like a plug like this, I don't think it's sealing up well, and I think there's a vacuum leak over there. So to test that, I will just start the truck and run it and spray, you know, carb cleaner around, and whenever the engine revs up, I know that I found where my leak is. So it's really not a big deal, but I just need to find that vacuum leak, and then the overboosting should be fixed. So got to do that. I need to get a new air filter, but that's just normal maintenance stuff. But as far as being reliable, I've taken the truck on multiple hour trips. I've done all kinds of things with it, you know, driven it in the snow, which I don't recommend too much, but it does get there as long as the snow isn't too deep. So there is that. But like I'm saying, the thing's been completely reliable other than the clutch cable snapping, but that was just, you know, a normal maintenance thing. That cable was probably 20 years old, so I can't really blame that on the truck or the swap. All the gauges continue to work, except for one. This is one thing I wanted to mention. The oil pressure gauge recently broke. Well, actually it still works, but as you can see, the face of the gauge is filled with oil here. So that's pretty cool. And this is exactly why I had this gauge mounted outside the truck. See, it has a line that actually carries oil to the gauge. And I told you guys when I mounted that here that the reason for that is because sometimes those break and piss oil everywhere. And sure enough, it broke. And it's actually containing the oil mostly. There's a little bit on the windshield here from driving, but I ordered a new gauge, so definitely gonna fix that because you can't be driving with that kind of an oil leak. But yeah, that is the exact reason why I won't mount an oil pressure gauge that actually carries oil to the gauge inside of the truck, because it's just gonna be a mess. And if it's inside the truck, then it's a mess that you have to clean up. So definitely wasn't trying to deal with that, and it was the right call. So one thing you may or may not remember from when I did the swap was whenever I dropped the tank, the filler tube that runs from this to the tank actually broke, and to get a new one was like $60, and it's just, you know, a tube. Now it is like, you know, made to handle gas, where most tubes are not. Like you couldn't use like a radiator tube. Anyways, 60 bucks. So I said screw that, and I just took it and duct taped the hell out of it and put it back in. And in 6 months of driving and filling it up, it has not leaked once. So I'm pretty impressed with the duct tape job there, but I expect it to break any day, but it hasn't. So I'm calling that a win. So about our little friend here, the boost gauge. Sadly, I went up to 20 psi on a pull one time, and he actually popped. A hole popped, I think, in his back somewhere. But I like him, so I just leave him sitting here for company while I drive. So I think it adds to the character of the truck, and I like it. So he's just chilling there. But yeah, as far as the longevity on these things, as soon as you hit any real amount of boost, they pop. You know, they're not made to hold that. But, you know, it was funny while it lasted, and I have a nice dash ornament, so can't complain. The rest of the gauges are working great, no problems. I did have to redo one of these switches. One of the wires fell off. Wasn't a big deal. It was easy to tell what was going on, but yeah, so there was that. And other than those things, there's really only one problem with this truck as far as it being a daily. Get the dirt out of here. So much dirt in there. There's really only one other problem with this truck as far as it being a daily, and that's that it's kind of loud. And I mean, yes, it's straight piped, but it's only 4-cylinder, and the reason that it's so loud is because the exhaust actually fell off one day while I was driving. It didn't actually fall off all the way, but it came disconnected from there, so it was just like dragging the ground. Luckily I was almost home, so I didn't really get damaged. But it's not, you know, it's not the truck's fault. I mean, it's my fault, because when I attached it, I used that right there, a band clamp. So number one, I was gonna redo that anyways, because it doesn't direct the exhaust out the back so well. The exhaust creeps out around the clamp, so I was gonna get some flanges and weld them on and do like a V-band clamp. So that is what I'm going to replace that with. And there's another one up there. Can't really see it, but there is. So got 2 band clamps that basically are just dumping the exhaust mostly right here, and that's right by the cab, so it's really loud in there. So it's not a huge deal. Let's turn the radio up, but in the interest of dailying it more, I am going to fix that. So got those parts ordered and on the way. In the meantime though, you know, just been driving her and whatnot. So other than those small things, the truck has been completely reliable, completely fine, fun to drive. It's a blast to drive because it's so light and the power is pretty good. So I mean, if you're thinking about doing it or you're needing motivation on your swap, I mean, just do it. Like, it's such a cheap swap to do. I'm gonna do a video on how much the build cost in total, and I think surprised how low the total figure is. And yeah, I mean, if you're thinking about doing it, just do it. If you're thinking about doing any engine swap, I would say, unless it's something really ridiculous, just do it. Like, it's not as hard as you think it is, and the reward is so much worth it. Like, the reward of driving a vehicle that you completely built yourself, it's not really like anything else. So definitely recommend it. And as far as this swap in particular, how easy is it? How reliable is it? I mean, it's super easy and super reliable. You know, the easiness is my opinion. I mean, there's a little bit of fabrication involved, but it's not bad. I'm not a mechanic. I'm not much of a fabricator. So if I can do it, you can do it too. So you should definitely do it. The world needs more 4G63 swap Mighty Maxes. So get out there and build one.